Hi, this is Jason Lawrence, and you're watching Home Building Knowledge TV. Today, I'm going to talk about what happens after your hole or your basement gets dug. As many people may know, or you may not, after your home is staked out on the property, the excavator is going to come out to your lot, and they're going to dig your hole. So what happens after the hole is dug? Well, I'm actually standing in a basement of one of our next model homes, so you can get a good look at the basement walls and the steel that just got set here. And if you look up over here, we've got all of our roof trusses. So we're just waiting for a framer. So what happens after the hole is dug? Okay, well, number one, the first thing that happens after the hole is dug is the concrete company, the basement wall company, is going to get in the hole. They're going to take measurements, make sure everything is level, and they're going to put down footings, or as some people call them, footers. I think in Wisconsin we call them footings, in other states they're footers. Anyways, the footing is what the basement wall sits on. And I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, I'll just switch around the camera view here. So this is a footing, and the footing is just as wide on the inside of your basement wall as it is on the outside. So this is basically an area that's dug down a little bit deeper than your actual basement wall, and it is the footing or foundation for your concrete basement walls to sit on. And the footings have, it's kind of all in one. They're poured with this hard gray plastic, and this is called Formadrain. Now, it's a little bit tough to see, but this runs around the whole perimeter of the foundation. And what this is, and now there's one on the inside, and then there is Formadrain on the outside of the basement wall as well. So what happens when it rains is all the water runs down, and it runs down into this Formadrain, and this Formadrain is going to be tied into the sump pump. So once these Formadrains fill up with water, all the water flows to the sump pump and then out of the house. So that's what the gray plastic is there. So the concrete wall company is going to come out and they are going to pour the footings. That's number one. So they set up for the footings, and then an inspector has to come out and inspect the footing forms before the footings are poured. So it usually takes a day to set up the footings, and then the next day they'll come out and bring the concrete trucks out and they'll actually pour the footings. Then after that, they're going to bring a truck out with all of the basement wall forms, and they're going to take a little crane and drop all of the forms into the basement. And the forms are basically just metal forms. The inside of the form has this stamped, it almost looks like a brick. That's what the inside of the form is shaped like. So when they pour the concrete inside there, it gives you this brick-like look on the inside. So the truck comes in, drops all the forms into the basement, and then the crew starts to set up the forms. And you can see with all these metal tabs here, the forms come in, like 3 to 4 foot sections. So each one of these seams and these tabs here will get, somebody will actually come down here and have the glorious job of knocking each one of these off. I used to do it when I was younger, and man, by the time I was done knocking off all these tabs, there's got to be 500 of them in here. My arm was pretty sore, but anyways, those will all come off. But this is where all the forms are placed together, so you can see the seam here from where the two forms go together. So they set up all the forms, they line them all up in the shape that your basement's going to be, and then they have the concrete truck come in and they pour the concrete into the form. And it's pretty cool. I'll actually do another video live when they're doing that, because they bring in this huge pump truck. And this truck has an arm that it's got to be long enough to be able to reach the back of your basement walls from the front of your basement. So if you have a basement that is, or a house that's, 70 feet deep, this concrete pump truck, this arm needs to extend, and it extends way up into the air, and then it reaches all the way across, and it can pour all and reach all of the forms. And so once they do that, they actually take like a motorized stir stick and they stick it down into the form and they turn it on, and that kind of ensures that all the concrete settles and you don't get any air bubbles or anything like that in the walls. And the company that we use, they're a good reputable company, Permastructo. They're out of the Racine area, and they do most all of the basements in our area. But you can see they pour real nice, clean walls. They always do real good work. They're also going to leave behind what you got up here, this little ring of bolts up here. So when the framers start framing and they lay the top plates on top of the basement walls, those bolts are going to, there's a bolt that sticks out of the top of the basement wall. The lumber, the green treated lumber, gets laid on top of that, and then it gets bolted down. Since that's your first layer and what's going up against on top of the basement wall, it needs to be a little more secure. So, all right, now the basement walls are poured. What's next? The excavator still has a lot of dirt around the foundation. There's still a gap in between the hole and the basement wall, and it's going to stay like that for 7 to 10 days. So after they pour the basement walls, the walls need to cure. Concrete needs to cure before they actually bring in the backfill and start filling in against the walls. So the concrete company will come back after the basement's poured, and these braces aren't here anymore, but they take 4x4s and they brace it from the floor into the wall. So they brace the whole foundation. They put all these braces in so that when the excavator is taking and dumping dirt in between the outside of the wall and the hole, it ensures that the walls don't cave in. So now it's a week after your basement was poured. The excavator's back and he backfills the foundation. So what's the next step? The next step is the steel. So you can see the steel I-beam behind me, and you can see all of the pads and the footings that the jack posts, this guy right here is called a jack post. That's what supports the steel I-beam. And that basically, those are designed to go into places that are going to carry certain loads from your roof and interior walls in your house. Your floor joists can only span so far before they need support. So if you look at this I-beam here, and you look at the basement wall here, it probably got about 6 feet between the basement wall and the I-beam. And then we got, from the I-beam all the way back to the other basement walls, another, 30 feet. So you don't have a floor joist unless you do a floor truss that can carry the weight of a house that whole span. So what happens is the steel company comes in. They also use a crane, and they pre-cut these pieces of steel. Some of them, this one here is probably 40 feet long. They bring it in on a truck. They drop it in on a crane. The concrete wall company, when they're setting up their basement walls, are going to cut in these beam pockets. So that's what the steel I-beam sits in. So that acts as a support, as well as the jack post that's behind me. So now we're at the point of walls are poured, the foundation's backfilled, we got our steel set. So what's next? Well, next we're going to be waiting for the framers to come out and start framing. So you can see up here we just got our roof trusses delivered today, and they're here a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's okay. They pretty much, from the time that we order those trusses, it takes about a month for them to be produced, and then shipped out to the job site. And they're too big for anybody to just throw in their pickup truck and drive away with, so we don't really have an issue with those being taken. So now we're waiting for our framer, and he is currently finishing up another house, and the day before the framer starts, we'll go ahead and get all the rest of the lumber dropped off at the site. We do that so that the lumber is not sitting here for weeks on end before the framers start getting pounded with rain and crappy weather, because then your wood's going to swell and there's just more of a chance for it to mold, which that's definitely something that we don't want to happen. So the next step after steel is set are for the framers to come out and get started on the house. So that'll happen in the next couple of days, and before you know it, we'll have our house framed up, we'll have our roof trusses set, and we'll have our rough HVAC and plumbing and electrical starting in the house. But those are the first steps of construction when you're having your new home built. A lot of you may know that. Some of you who haven't built before may not know that. So hopefully I shared a little bit of insight with you on the beginning steps of what's next after the hole is dug. If you have any questions pertaining to anything regarding finding a lot, the home building process, how thick are my basement walls? These are 8 inches thick, for example. If we did a 9-foot tall wall, we would make these walls 10 inches thick as opposed to 8 inches thick. If you have any questions pertaining to anything, new construction, existing home, finding a lot, I'm your man. So hit me up on Facebook, www.facebook.com/homebuildingknowledge, and I have a website called homebuildingknowledge.com, and I'm here for the purpose of helping you understand the construction process and everything that goes into it. One of the biggest things to note is that all builders use different ingredients. So if you have a question about what those ingredients are, feel free to reach out and I'll make sure and get back to you and answer the question as best as I can. I really appreciate you tuning in today. This was Jason Lawrence, and you're watching Home Building TV, Home Building Knowledge TV. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.